iPhone 13 Pro review, enhanced camera, and 2-day battery life. The iPhone 13 Pro is the best of the 2021 Apple crop thanks to the 120Hz promotion display, enhanced camera, and 2-day battery life. But bear in mind that the best Android rivals still win on charging speeds and low-light camera performance. With 4 phones in the iPhone lineup, the 13 Pro has a tough job to do. It has to prove itself not only against stiff Android competition but also against the iPhone 13 itself, to justify why someone should pay extra for Pro features in a phone that's otherwise essentially identical. That's a test that last year's 12 Pro failed miserably, with the cheaper 12 clearly the better buy. This year the tables have turned, and the 13 Pro looks like the winner of the 2021 iPhone lineup. Whether that's because Apple has improved the 13 Pro so or needlessly held back features from the regular 13 will mostly depend on your level of cynicism, but the end result is the same. This is the best iPhone this year. Is the best iPhone good enough anymore? For iOS devotees certainly, though those open to switching sides will find stronger stills cameras and slicker hardware in the best Android phones, though Apple has caught up on key ground this year, most notably in some phenomenal improvements to battery life. Apple remains cautious in updating the iPhone design, and so the 13 Pro will look very similar to anyone who used last year's 12 Pro. That means a familiar notch, squared-off stainless steel sides, and welcome Apple touches like the physical slider to set the phone on silent. Looking at it head-on, the 13 Pro is the exact same size as its predecessor, though it's now fractionally thicker and 15 grams heavier. Combined with the squared sides that the company reintroduced last year, that does leave the phone feeling fairly chunky, though it must be said that the heft, together with the stainless steel frame, do lend it some premium polish. This year Apple has fractionally shrunk the notch that cuts into the top of the screen, but unless you set this phone side by side against one of last year's you'd be hard-pressed to spot it. The phone's software certainly doesn't do much with the extra screen space. You'll see the same notification icons on either side no matter what, and welcome as this change is, it's not big enough for anyone to bother upgrading over. The reduced notch still packs all of the same Face ID tech as before, it's simply been condensed, but Apple still hasn't found space to squeeze in one of the Touch ID power buttons found on a few of the recent iPads. That was always annoying, but especially so given Face ID's well-documented difficulties with face masks. And while the front camera space has shrunk, the back is ballooning. There are still 3 lenses, but new larger sensors have prompted Apple to enlarge the whole camera module, which now takes up more of the phone's rear and protrudes further from it too. This was never the best-looking phone camera in the world, and making it bigger certainly hasn't helped, but I doubt it'll bother many people too much. I've been reviewing the 13 Pro in its gold finish, which I'll admit is a bit garish for my tastes, but I know it has its fans. If it's not for you either, then rest assured that silver and graphite return from last year's lineup, along with the new, and rather striking, Sierra Blue, a lighter replacement to last year's Pacific Hue. There's also the Alpine Green finish to consider, which made an appearance around 6 months after the initial release. As with all iPhones, you can expect an IP68 waterproof rating, while the display is coated in Apple's custom ceramic shield finish for extra durability. For many, the display will be the reason to upgrade to the 13 Pro, and certainly the biggest reason to choose this phone over the similarly sized iPhone 13. Both models have 6.1 inches OLED displays with support for HDR, True Tone, and all the usual extras. Only the Pro, and the larger, 6.7 inches Pro Max, boast extra brightness and a crucial upgrade, 120Hz refresh rates, officially dubbed Promotion. Every new iPhone series brings with it an updated chipset, and this is no different, with the 5nm A15 Bionic now calling the shots. Comparing iPhone chips to Android feels a little fruitless, but neither side could disagree that the iPhone 13 Pro will stand toe-to-toe with any Android phone in the market on pure power, and often excel, particularly in specific tasks, like video rendering. In our testing, the 13 Pro has improved roughly 25% year-on-year in CPU performance, while in our graphical benchmark we saw a 19% jump. Benchmark scores are consistently above the best Android devices of the last year, though bear in mind that the framerate gap on graphical tests is closer than it seems, with the Android flagships boasting higher resolution displays that require more graphical processing power. If there's one area where Apple has undoubtedly lagged behind Android for the last few years, it's battery life. So you'll forgive me for scoffing slightly when the company promised the best battery life on iPhone ever, this time around. Some promise, right? Whether it's the bigger battery found inside, not that Apple reveals battery capacities officially, efficiencies thanks to the dynamic refresh rate in a 15 chip, or even just software tweaks. The end result is the first iPhone in years that actually has good battery life, not just good for an iPhone. With light use, the 13 Pro lasts me 2 days, though admittedly that does run it down to the single digits by bedtime on day 2. Typical use still sees it comfortably last a full day, and I expect it will remain this way for a couple of years, even with battery degradation. I'm sure someone committed could drain the battery in a day. Heavy gaming or extensive video capture would probably do the trick, but I doubt the average user will see such happen anytime soon. That's a huge step forward for Apple, and sees the new iPhone not just hold pace with the best Androids but actually outlast many of them. I can't remember the last time that happened. While some of the top Android phones can now fully charge in less than half an hour, and even offer wireless speeds that aren't much slower, Apple only advertises 20W max speeds for the 13 Pro, which it says can deliver a 50% charge in half an hour. In fact, enterprising testers have discovered that the 13 Pro seems to cap at 23W speeds, fractionally better, but still. As such, if you do plan on pairing your Pro with a new charger to match, you shouldn't look for anything much past 25W, as you won't see any additional benefit. Apple primarily pushes shoppers towards its Pro models based on their camera features, and while this year's 120Hz display upgrade will be a major appeal for many, the additional cost over the regular iPhone 13 only really makes sense if you're also expecting to make the most out of the phone's photography prowess. At a glance, the rear camera here looks similar to the 12 Pro's, except that it's larger, and, once again, you'll find a main lens, an ultrawide and a telephoto sensor. Each of them has been upgraded though, and the results are undeniably impressive. The iPhone 13 Pro is available now from Apple, Amazon, and more. It isn't a cheap phone, even at its starting price, and it quickly becomes a very expensive one as you add on storage. 128GB, £949 per 999 United States dollars per 1,159 euros. 256GB, £1,049 per 1,099 United States dollars per 1,279 euros. 512GB, £1,249 per 1,299 United States dollars per 1,509 euros. 1 terabyte, £1,449 per 1,499 United States dollars per 1,739 euros. You'll be paying roughly £170 per 200 United States dollars per 250 euros extra for the Pro over the regular iPhone 13 at each storage point, though there's no 1 terabyte option for that model. Though that feels like a reasonable premium for the 120Hz display, telephoto lens, and other extra features dotted throughout. I'd say the display alone makes the extra cost worth it for many, though do consider how much you'll really appreciate the extras.